Well, the IRS is reportedly laying off more than 6,000 workers, the latest cuts in the Trump administration's efforts to reduce federal bureaucracy. But the layoffs come at a critical time for the IRS, the 2025 tax season. Here with more on how cuts could impact your taxes and your refund is Tom Osabin, who is the Director of Tax Content at the National Association of Tax Professionals. Tom, good to have you here, and thanks for taking the time to help us break this down. What kinds of issues could we see with the IRS layoffs taking place at the beginning of this tax season?
Yeah, the timing is really ill-timed. Can easily say that as we're getting into the heart of the tax filing season now. So I'm likening it in some ways to back during COVID when, people had to work from home or there were, stay-at-home orders. And we gave similar advice then, and I'm going to give it now. I'm a tax professional, been one for more than 30 years. It's no different what I do that I would say to someone out there who's going to maybe work on their own return this weekend. And what you want to plan to do, this layoff situation could in fact be a non-event to a lot of individual taxpayers if they, number one, commit themselves to try to avoid person-to-person contact at the IRS. In today's tech-heavy world, just had a great discussion about all of the tech stocks and how they're doing. The notion being electronically filed, just as we're seeing here on the chart. So put your data together, and if any possibility, electronically file. But before you press send, be sure to review all that data and make sure it's accurate so it'll be in the system and processed like normal. Double check those social security numbers and the names. If you had a dependent perhaps that was born late in 2024, do you have a social security number yet for that child? When I meet a new client, the first thing I do is I look at last year's return. So even when you're sitting there doing your own return, start with last year and make sure you've got good data that you're putting in. Make every attempt to electronically file, either through commercially available software, your tax professional, the IRS free file program, and try to make sure that you've got good information going in. I would also suggest to set up for direct deposit. What do you need to do? Double check your bank routing number and account number before you press submit, because that'll be another way to avoid making sure we don't have to have person-to-person contact before everything goes awry. Now, one thing also to do to help to not clog the phone lines, use the IRS Where's My Refund tool, as opposed to calling the 800 number, which you're going to be very, very frustrated and you're going to be on hold for a long time. Use the Where's My Refund tool. Realize that even after you get a confirmation back from your software, it's going to take several days, if not more than a week, for that data to be available on the Where's My Refund tool.
Right.
So from that standpoint, patience is a virtue. And again, you're trying to avoid, I'm sorry, go ahead, but I was just going to say patience is a virtue. Be prepared for long waits if you're going to have to call.
And so is there any potential impact as a result of the layoffs to people's tax refunds?
So far, we haven't heard that. Most of the returns are processed in an automated fashion, so that's the good news. If for some reason a return is kicked out, I will tell you that long ago I was taught that a tax return is kind of like a health insurance claim. The difference is a health insurance claim is reviewed pending acceptance. IRS submissions of returns are accepted pending review. So the things that would cause a later review of a return don't happen in the electronic submission process. There's only a couple of ways that a return would fail. One being social security numbers and last names don't match. That will kick a return out of the system. If you happen to purchase your health insurance on the marketplace and you didn't enter the data from that Form 1095A, that will cause the return to immediately reject. So you want to make sure you've got that information, just as we showed in the slide a moment ago, as to having your data good, you have everything together, and you submit a clean return. Garbage in, garbage out is the old saying.
What if people have concerns about data breaches? What's your advice there?
That's always a concern. And, larger companies than mine have certainly been hacked and all of those issues. The IRS has the ability to get what's called an identity protection PIN. Now, in years past, you have to either be a victim of identity theft or feared you were, and in order to get one. Now anybody can. So if you've got the nuclear family husband, wife, 2 children, you can each have an identity protection pin. You go to the getanippin.com, which is part of the IRS website, and you can get that set up. That will provide another layer, almost like multi-factor authentication, another layer that the bad guys have to get through, and I always describe it as the keys to the candy store. If the bad guys can get a match to the first 4 letters of your last name and your social, they're in. But if they've got one more layer they've got to get through, that being that identity protection pin, one more step to make your data more protected. One other thing I want to throw out to you as we're talking about the potential for data breaches, if people have anxiety right now, there are bad guys out there that prey on that anxiety. Don't bite on emails that you get that say, we'll help you. We'll help you get your return through. Listen, if it's unsolicited, it's going to be a problem and probably cause you more problems down the road.
Tom, thanks so much for taking the time here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.